Okay, welcome. We are going to work on tearing it apart and working on the carburetors now. And I am picking up all of the pieces for the carbs. And right now I'm cutting the wires. I'm going to take the wiring harness off. I'm going to bag it. And this really looks like a professionally made wiring harness. It does not look like a homemade wiring harness. So hopefully it is reusable and we will reuse it. And um, it's just time to take it all off. And um, right now, right there, I just actually cut. There's like a sub harness going to the tail lights. So um, cut that off because I'll make the new sub harness. And I want to keep the main harness though. So keep the main harness. We'll throw it in a bag. I'm clipping the wires for the generator. And again, we will be able to reuse everything. I just make new connections. And the dash on this is the dash is broken. And I've got another dash that's not broken. So we're going to use the same two dial dash. One is a speedometer, one is a tachometer. It's an electronic tachometer that connects to the coil. So will work great. And the once you get the wiring harness off, you might as well start taking off the rear fender. And I've already taken the regulator off in the regulator bracket that contained a couple relays and the flasher relay. So there are a couple bolts that hold the fender to the battery tray. So I'm taking that off, and the rear fender will come out. I really need to make some videos about painting because I'm not saying I'm an expert at all because, again, everything I do, I am the absolute ultimate novice on this. But I use spray can paint and I use clear coat, and I'm telling you, I can get mirror finishes. No orange peel, no nothing. It looks as good as you can probably get. Um, I don't do much work on the tin work. If there is a dent, I kind of keep the dent because I kind of really like. I'm not really trying to hide that it's not a 50-year-old bike. The tanks, if the tanks have huge dents, I will try to get those out because they just look awful. So I'll use filler, and I don't use necessarily Bondo. There's another product that, if you have severe dents, it's almost like an aluminum fiber type product. I've only done it on one tank. Most tanks are pretty good. And if there's a tiny little dent, I'm not going to mess with it anyway. So um, it's very, um, it is what it is. So now it's getting the rear fender off, which is um, kind of like one of the first steps. And it's very, it's like one of the easier steps. Once we start taking off the front fork and the front wheel, that is incredibly intimidating. And it's incredibly intimidating because there are a lot of things that you think that are outside your realm of skill. And yes and no. Um, Well, number one, I've taken off this headlight bucket. This headlight bucket is too small. It's the wrong headlight bucket. I've got a headlight bucket for this bike. So we're going to put on a true official Eldorado headlight bucket for this. This is just like some knockoff or something. And it's very, you have the shocks, you have the two um, triple trees, the top and the lower. You have bearings, you have the handlebar, you have um, the fender stays, you have the wheel. So you have the brakes. So you have a lot going on just on the front fork assembly. And it's a lot of things I've learned the hard way. So it's very I'm feeding the wire through here at this point. So I'm just trying to get all the wiring removed from the bike. And when we rewire the bike, it will be impeccably neat, clean, orderly, and correctly color coded. I'm not saying this bike wasn't color coded correctly before, but the final product will be color coded. And it's very um, well, we will make sure that it is color coded correctly. The there's a lot of wire in there, isn't there? So if you were to add up all the time it takes to disassemble this bike, I'm going to say 3 or 4 hours max. And I'm not really going crazy bonkers fast. Um, I'm methodically going through, removing everything, bagging and not necessarily tagging, but it's bagging everything and keeping everything as neat and orderly as possible. And most likely, we're not going to break the engine totally down, but the heads and the cylinders are coming out. I am hoping that the connecting rods and the bearings in the connecting rods are good. If they are, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to um, most likely put a big bore kit on this. I've got the 5-speed transmission all set, ready to go. And we will go through and piece by piece. And that's really what I want to emphasize. Everything here is going to be piece by piece refurbished. And so I'm 99% positive I'm pulling the engine out of the frame. And I'm really going to keep everything on my table here just to keep everything orderly. But it's when I take the engine out, just put it like on the front of the table. Obviously, I've got to take the heads off and the cylinders. It just makes it easier to manage getting it out. Transmission is super easy to get out. So it's, if you told me, if you rode up to my garage with a motorcycle and said, take the transmission out, if you give me 2 hours, I can take it out and put it back in. Here is the push button. It's got the wrong plate holding it. We're going to correct that. I've got the correct plate for it. And we're going to get that resolved shortly. Just bagging everything up. If you kind of bag everything up, bolts and everything, even if you don't know what it's for, just bag it up. It kind of keeps everything neat and orderly. I've got a big plastic bin that I'm putting everything in. It's hard to see, but it's behind the bike. So everything's getting put in a bin. In later videos, you're going to see the bin, and it's just, I've got one big bin that just holds bags of parts. The tank is on my lift, and it's going to get moved. And I mean, within 2 hours, this bike is going to be down to just a frame alone. So, not thinking about sandblasting it. And the paint on there is nice. It's hard. It's scratched. I'm going to refinish it. And I'm going to paint it. It will look fantastic. And I think I actually may clear coat it as well. So, same for the center stand. And here is where I'm working at taking off the I'm taking off the handlebar grip. So the first thing I need to really focus on is taking off the that switch. So that switch is not original. It's a nice switch, but I need to take the switch off first. And once I get the switch off, I can take the grip off. Okay, welcome back. And we are going to continue with tearing the bike apart. And stand by. So we are going to work on obviously taking off the hand grip, and we're going to have to take off the handlebars and all the clamps and everything like that. So we're going to strip this thing down bare, and we are going to be left with, in essence, just a frame. And we're going to start from there. We're going to get down to the frame and build up from there. In this case, we need to take off the hand grip, and we also need to take off that switch. And I don't know really much about that switch. It's a nice switch. It has turn signals, high and low, and horn. The one thing it does not have is it does not have a switch for turning the headlights on and off, which is slightly problematic. And because you really kind of need that. And especially on these Guzzis, you really need the on and off switch. You don't really want to start the bike up without it. So I'm going to take this switch off. I'm going to replace it with, most likely at this point, a Yamaha switch. They have period correct Yamaha switches that it'll look nice. It'll be very nice. And so it is, I'm going to keep that switch. Again, I don't know what type that switch is, but I'm going to keep that switch and do something different with the Yamaha switch. I'm also going to have to do, next is getting this hand grip off. And you're going to be surprised, these hand grips, once they get on there, they're incredibly hard to get off. But I guess I learned a little secret about getting it off with a WD-40 and a screwdriver. So if you get the screwdriver underneath of there and you can get the WD-40 under there, and then you start turning it and twisting it, it will actually pop off really quickly. And there it is. So it's very, it makes life nice and easy with the WD-40 and the screwdriver. So Handlebars are going to get taken off. I'm going to replace the handlebars with a correct set of handlebars. And it's actually a beautiful bike. I mean, it looks like 10 miles of bad road, but it really is a beautiful bike. And we are going to make it a beautiful bike. That was the clutch cable that I was taking off. And I was unscrewing in essence, the clutch attachment that connects to the clutch bar. So I'm taking the entire assembly off, bagging it, and going to put it in the bin. Next is taking off the battery tray. That really secures the rear fender to the frame, to the transmission. So it really ties everything together. Those are 17 millimeter bolts. They're super short. They're very hard to find. So I'm going to take those off, bag them, and it's probably an understatement to say that I love these bikes. I think they're beautiful bikes. They are so well made. And right now I'm taking off I believe that they're M8 bolts, M8 by 15 millimeter bolts. And these are secured to the top of the transmission. I love these bikes. They are so elegant in their design. They are, I don't want, for me to say they're simple in design is really kind of dismissive because there is elegance in simplicity, but the tolerances of everything they are incredibly tight. They are very well engineered, and they are, in essence, a work of art. I work on BMWs. I had some BMWs. I had two BMW motorcycles. Beautiful bikes. The engineering in the Moto Guzzis versus the BMWs, I think it's night and day difference. And it's probably night and day difference to what you may not think it would be. But I just think that these motorcycles are so well engineered, it's unbelievable. The tolerances are incredibly tight. They are incredibly reliable. They are incredibly well thought out. And they are spectacular bikes. And with the BMWs, I would run into issues and I would just question, wow, why did they do this? Why did they do that? For the Moto Guzzis, it is so, man, they did it right. Wow, they really thought this out. This is fantastic. The critiques I have for these bikes, engines, for transmissions, for frames, it is probably one or two items. And the one or two items that I may have issues with, you know what? I actually resolve the issues myself. So, like providing a mark on the little generator wheel in the front where top dead center is for the right hand cylinder. They don't provide that. So they do for the left hand cylinder, but not the right hand cylinder. So, you know what? I just make my own. I make my own mark. So we will be making our own transmission, our own top dead center mark for the right hand cylinder on the generator little pulley wheel, that one that you can see down there. We're going to do that. So we will have two different marks, one mark for top dead center for the left-hand cylinder and one for the right-hand cylinder. So problem solved. And it's very, this bike, we're going to most likely upgrade it to 1000cc. Transmission is a 4-speed that's going to be switched to a 5-speed. And I know in a previous video, I think I may have mentioned that I'm going to make it a floorboard model. Most likely I won't. I mean, I have them, but I probably won't. I'm still undecided. I'm not there yet. So we're going to get on this build and see where we're at. I mentioned the Coney shocks. I'm probably going to reuse these shocks because you know what, they're original with the bike. So let me just use those. We will refurbish them. They will look great. They'll operate great. So upgrading this thing to a 1000cc, putting on the 5-speed transmission. It's a numbers matching Eldorado. Let's make it look like an Eldorado. And I already have a solo seat set up for it, ready to go. And I have the set of handlebars. I don't have a paint scheme. The tin work looks really good. I've already stripped off the and I did that a long time ago. I stripped off the tattered paint that was on the tank. The tank does not look like it has any repairs to it. It looks really good. And the wiring harness that we took off, it looked like a professionally made wiring harness. We're going to try to reuse it. And I think we'll be able to reuse it. I don't see any issues with it. This has the original generator. I'm going to put a relay solution in there. And so it will be incredibly reliable. The electrics will be incredibly reliable, incredibly safe. And I have the fuse panel kind of ready to go. It is, I have one, and I'll make sure it works. It's some of the connections don't seem that solid, so I'm going to solder the connections. So if you're looking at the front wheel, you're going to see that there are some stays that are painted and look crusty. We're going to strip them, and I'm going to plate them. So I've already promised people that I'm going to show them my plating process. Keep in mind, I am a novice. I am not an expert at this. I am just some guy who tinkers in his garage. So that's it. I tinker, and it's I'm going to plate it. So right now I'm trying to get it set up because it is, in essence, it's going to be time to take off the front wheel. And thank you.